All right, welcome. Welcome to the second session in our Lunch and Learn Parent Gauge series. Today we're going to be going over what does this button do? Common troubleshooting and frequently asked questions types of things. Lucretia is going to be heading this up here in a moment, and I also wanted to plug or have a plug for another webinar we're doing on April 20th called Maximizing Your PFCE Efforts. And that's going to be a presentation with Ready for K and Parent Gauge. So by all means, that might be a great webinar to supplement this series that we're doing today. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Lucretia.
Well, good morning, afternoon, wherever you're at right now. Glad to see you. Start off with a very deep breath because I need it. And also, don't forget, this is our Lunch and Learn. So if you're eating something healthy, put it in the chat. We want to know about it. We want to know what you guys are eating. I'm not eating anything because it would be rude to talk with my mouth. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. We're going to get right started on looking into Parent Gauge. And can everybody see my screen okay?
Looks good.
All right, great. So the first thing that we're going to look at for what does this button do are samples. Samples is a way of, let's say that your program, with all the turnovers that everybody's dealing with, you just don't have time to do all of them. But you still want to get a good base sample so that you can see how you're doing. This is very easy to do. And this is something that program administrators and most center administrators will have access to. So in the samples, you would click Create Sample. And you can name it whatever you want. So for this one, we're just going to name it April 2023. Now, here's the really cool thing. I can do all the centers and they'll just pull random kids from all the centers, or I can just do one center at a time because maybe some of my centers don't have as many kids and I don't need sampling on those. So I'm going to do a specific center. I'm going to do test Kate. Now here it's telling me that for the center test Kate, if I do a 20% sample, 36 students will be sampled. Well, what if I want to change the amount? Let's take a look. Maybe I want to do a quarter of the kids. Now it's telling me how many kids. Do I have enough teachers to be able, or FSWs to be able to handle the 45 students? Yeah. So then I can click Submit. And right here is my sample. I click on that sample and I can view my sampled children. And now I know which children to go ahead and do interviews for. This is extremely handy. It is used by programs a lot. Some of them who are just starting out with Parent Gauge started with samples and they work their way up every year to include more children. One year they had to reduce it because of turnover, but then they were able, thank goodness, to move up because they have more staff now. So very good tool to help you if you're feeling overwhelmed by having too many children that you need to interview for. Okay, so the next one. Let's look at recordings. So in here, I'm going to create an interview real quick. And I'll use my test babies. Actually, why don't I just go ahead and do an interview that's already started, and that'll make it simpler. Let's look at Carrie. So for Carrie, while I'm talking to the family, I'm going to record it. So I click here. Testing 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to refresh it. And right there is my recording. Okay. And now let's say that I wanted to upload an audio file. Now I was going to record something on my iPhone and upload it for you all to see. However, iTunes wanted to upgrade. It became this whole thing. So I'm just going to show you something that I already have in here. Interview updated. Here. And there's my recording. And I won't make you listen to the whole song, even though it's a really good one. So that's all you have to do for recordings. Does anybody have any questions or anything before I move on to the next thing? I know I'm being kind of fast. The stuff that I really want to focus on, we're about to get to, and then I want time for questions. So if anybody has any questions, please let us know. Sandy, we doing okay so far?
So far, so good. And
All
by
right.
all means, just for everybody attending, like if you have any looming questions, feel free to throw them in the chat now and we'll make sure we get to them at the end as well.
Thank you. Okay. All right, now for the biggie, and that is duplicate kids and duplicate guardians. How to clean this up. So first, we're going to look at the connection between children and guardians. And we're going to start with my little favorite guy, Charlie. Looky here. I have 3 Charlie buckets. And they're all the same kid. One of them is in lower, one is in upper, both in the same center. And then I have one that's in a completely different center. So we know that this happens when you have a lot of cooks and they're all working on the same pot. One chef might put in salt and then another chef doesn't know that it already has salt and they add more salt. It happens. One of the things that we have done to stop this is to give you a notification that you are about to do a duplicate. So I'm going to show you what happens when you do a duplicate child now. See that error? When you get this, we suggest you don't create a duplicate. If you see that it's showing you this, but you can't find that other child, here's a couple of reasons why you may find this. The child is located in another center, and as staff, you don't have access to that center and can't see it. The child is currently showing as inactive, either in your center or another center. If you cannot find this child, either active or inactive in your center, contact your program manager so that they can search to see if the child is in other centers. As always, if you need help because nobody can find why you're getting this message, over here to contact, let us know. We'll look into it for you. Now, this is wonderful. And this is really going to help you all going forward with duplicate children. Guardians, we're hoping to have that in place in just a few weeks. So right now, the capability of having duplicate guardians is still there, but we are working to fix that. Okay, let's get back to little Charlie. And let's see if we can figure out why there's 3 and what we can do about it. Let's take a look at his guardian. And let's go with the one that we know is good. Okay, guardian's Grandpa George. Here we see that there's one child. Let's take a look at this one. Here we see there's 2. That means I have 2 different guardians. I have one with just one child and one with 2 children. This is the one that we're going to need to keep because both of these kids are in the system. Let's take a look at little Joe. Little Joe is an early Head Start in this center. Little Joe is where he needs to be. But that's why Grandpa George is showing us having 2 kids on that one, which is what we want him to do. So the first thing we need to do is to clean up Charlie's. Oops. This is the correct one. This is the one we want to keep. So on this one with the lower cases, I'm going to edit. And I'm going to make him inactive so he won't pull. Very good. Okay, so why did I make him active? Why didn't I just delete him if there's 3? I'll tell you why. Because interviews were done on that Charlie. And if I were to delete him, that data history would be lost. If I make him inactive, he's not going to bother anything and we get to keep that data. So now let's take care of this one. Okay. And now one more time, I'm going to check on Charlie. And there we go. Actually, I think I might have done the wrong one. So let me correct his center. There we go. Now let's look at the guardians. We have 3. This one has both kids, Test Kate and Delgado baby, test baby. So this is the one that we want to say. So we're going to click on this one. And same rules apply. We are just going to make him inactive. And this one will do the same. There we go. So Grandpa's got 2 kids, one in the test babies and one in test Kate, which is exactly what we wanted. No data has been lost, but the list has been cleaned up. Now that we're putting in the stop in your tracks notification of duplications, you shouldn't have to do this too often. But if stuff has been going on for a while and you need to do a cleanup, now you guys know what to look for, where to look, and how to fix it. Okay, so hopefully we have questions. I went through that much faster than I thought. So are there any questions at all?
No questions in the chat yet.
Ah, okay. Either I'm really good or you guys are being really quiet. Did anybody at least put in what they're munching on? No? All right, lesson learned. Okay, is there anything that you would like to see that I have not gone over that would be helpful to you? Anything in the program that you want to check out? I know that we've got reports coming up in the next 2.
Yeah,
We can-
Lucretia, one thing that I've been seeing in our tickets, and this is a pretty, you're going to be able to cover this pretty quickly, but is, I have some staff will reach out on behalf of other staff because they've gotten locked out or changed passwords. What's the best way to get that set up for people?
Okay, if they've already been in the system, when they log in, they should be able to get a change your password notification where they can go ahead and update it. If they, no matter what they do, they can't get in, have them go to contact us. If they can't get in to contact us, have their center administrator or program administrator notify us. We will be glad to help on the back end and get a temporary password to that person. But in the last meeting I had, they had quite a few who signed in originally on ParentGauge. And now that they're going back to actually working in ParentGauge, they all forgot their passwords. So what they did was they logged in, used their email address, and clicked on the forgot password or however it's set up in the system, and were able to get back in without any trouble. So that should help them out greatly.
Awesome. I'm sure that's something everybody's going to encounter at some point. So that's a good one.
There's so many passwords that we all have to keep in mind. It's impossible to keep all of them straight. So absolutely. Any other questions? Any questions on interviews that we went over last week and maybe you didn't get an opportunity to catch us, or you caught us, but then you thought of something afterwards? We'd be glad to go over that with you all.
And we got about 10 minutes left, gang. So by all means, we're going to hang out. If you have any questions still, go ahead, chat them in, or you can unmute yourself and jump in. Our next 2 sessions are also going to be half hour, and we'll be going over report functions there. So by all means, though, if you have any questions right now, we can definitely get into that, even if they're around reports. And again, we also have another webinar called Maximizing Your PFCE Efforts. If you do want to supplement your ParentGauge knowledge, this one's going to be more macro level, right? Not necessarily in ParentGauge as directly. It's going to be more about, your PFCE efforts, and that's partnered with Ready for K. And then we just dropped the link for the next sessions coming up. So if you need to access the recordings, or you want to make sure that somebody else is registered for the additional sessions, by all means, that link is going to help you there.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else that I can think of to show you guys that I know that people have trouble with. Everyone knows how to add children. how to add guardians. If you're adding a new guardian and a new child, we suggest you start with Create Guardian. The reason why is when you're done, it's going to give you a link at the end that says Create Child, and it will take you directly to it. Just a little few clicks, not that big of a deal, but it does help keep everybody straight. If you have questions about that, we'd be glad to answer. Adding guardians, filters. Filters is pretty great. Let's say that I just want to see those that are in progress right now because I know I need to finish them. Let's see, scroll to the correct year. That's also helpful. Centers, and I just want to see how I'm doing on my test babies. And filter. Let's see how we're doing with mid-year. Quite a few that I've started that I haven't finished yet. So that's something that I will be working on this week to get those interviews in. This is a very helpful way of finding those things. You can also see if you're looking to see if there's inactive kids.
Oh, that's a great point, because I know that there's been sometimes where I'm like, I know this child exists or this guardian exists,
Yeah.
but I can't find them when I use all. So that's another one where if you
Right.
actually change that status to inactive, like Lucretia just did, then it'll pull them up. And, you know, 'cause sometimes I'm like, I know this is here. And that's usually what it is I need to switch it to inactive.
Right. And for staff, they're only going to see the particular center they're in. But for program administrators, you can just make it all. And there's all of them so that you can see if you're looking for a particular child or a particular group. Let's see what happens if I enter Charlie, since we just cleaned him all up. Of course. He's in here. He's just hard to find because I've got so many things in here. Do we have any other questions?
No other questions. I think that's a wrap.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for your time. Hopefully you got something out of this today. We'll see how things go for you. If you think of a question afterwards, please let us know. You can contact us up at the top. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Sandy, give it to you to close it out.
By all means, you know, stay tuned next week, and we're going to go into reports, starting off with the baseline reports. I think that's going to be valuable, even if, you know, primarily, you know, the admins are usually going to be the most interested. But I think even on an individual level, anybody who is conducting interviews, you know, you can pull up your own interviews as well. So it's still beneficial there too. And, you know, like Lucretia said, if any questions pop up after the fact, I know sometimes we're processing and then it's like, wait, I did want to know how this works. Just let us know. You can reach out to us individually or through that help button inside of ParentGauge. So with that all said, I hope you guys enjoyed your midday snack or lunch or whatever time of day it is for you. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Take care, everyone. It's good to see you.